Well, today's topic is, I think, of interest to many. It's a topic that is pretty wild nowadays. And I would say with all the craziness that is happening in the politics in the world today, it's actually kind of a good time for the vegan movement because things got so unconventional in so many other ways that it would actually be no longer impossible to make a vegan ask. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about this topic from different angles. I am very excited to have two amazing panelists with us today. Clifton is a return guest. We had him with us a couple months ago when we were talking about the topic of doing major activism on the side while keeping a corporate job. So Clifton is a perfect example of somebody who has a very powerful, very high up leadership job at Intel, but then manages to pursue significant activism. And what's really cool is that he actually is very involved with the vegan political activism. Sadie, who is joining us from UK, is the first-time panelist here, but she's a very long-term star to VLCM. So Sadie is actually somebody who created a tremendously successful vegan initiative inside her governmental organization in the UK, and then took it to the next level, pretty much started thinking about how that model could be replicated in other governmental groups, and became actually a real influencer in the UK politics. So I think Sadie will share with us some pretty interesting presentation and some pretty interesting engagement she had. So how we're going to do it today is it's going to be a mix of some fun facts. We are going to do a little bit of audience activities, but then we'll be definitely focusing on talking to our panelists and asking them very specific questions that would be useful and practical to everybody. So right now I'm going to leave this PowerPoint and actually we'll just do our first activity. I would like to ask you guys to please log into this link, paulev.com/DarinaBachma176. So we can just learn a little more about where everybody is located. So once you join, you should see this map, and please just click on the map wherever you are located so we can get an idea where everybody is. Oh, wow. Not sure if somebody is actually joining from Africa, but we do have a little marker there now. And more UK and more US. Great. Well, thank you. This was just for us to see. The second question is more of a classic multiple choice. Have you seen any other Vegan Leaders livecast before? It counts whether you attended live or whether you replayed. So it looks like the majority has seen several of our livecasts, and then we have at least one person that is a first-time attendee. So now let's return to our main topic. And basically, I just want to start by setting the stage for this topic. When it comes to politics, there are really three main constituencies at play, each of them very important. And I hope that our panelists would agree with this. So first you have all the people, all the voters, all the constituents. If these voters start demanding certain legislation or certain changes in a society, the government is usually very fast to respond because they want to please their constituents, they want to get reelected. So working on this group is actually quite important when it comes to politics. And this actually for us means all of the vegan activism initiatives that are happening just at the targeting society at large. The second groups are the politicians, and I think that's the part of this equation we're going to focus on a lot today. If politicians themselves are in tune with the vegan movement, they have many opportunities on a daily basis to influence legislation and to directly promote the message. Lastly, this is the interest groups. Traditionally, this has been a very tough nut to crack because these have been all of the meat industry powerful players who have had a lot of power over the politicians to push for things that were not good for the vegan movement. That is hopefully changing now that the plant-based industry is becoming a bigger player. Their lobby power should increase. So I just kind of wanted to share this with you as a general framework when you kind of think about this topic and when we discuss this topic from here. Maybe we can just try to ask ourselves, how can we work on these different angles? So now let me share with you the first fun fact. I will have 4 interesting fun facts today. This is actually cool. There might be actually more politicians or governmental public sector employees who are vegan than what you may realize. Now, some are obvious, Cory Booker, Bill Clinton, but there are actually many more. There was recently a pretty good article by Live Kindly that actually featured, I believe, 10 or 14 of these politicians. So just to share a couple examples, I had no idea about this. Adam Schiff is a very well-known member of the US Congress. He was very powerful in the Intelligence Committee, and he's vegan, apparently. Kerry McCarthy is the member of parliament in the UK, and she was, I believe, the first person, according to this article, that brought up veganism as a topic to debate in the parliament. Jeremy Corbyn is a little bit of a celebrity in the UK. He's a very long-standing member of parliament. He's been a leader of opposition in the last couple of years, very involved with the Labour Party, and he's vegan. And I'm very excited about this one. Chokwe Antar Lumumba is a mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, which is the last place you would expect a vegan leader in politics. So these are just a couple names. The article that I'm talking about here mentions a couple other powerful players like in New Zealand and in other places. So this just kind of tells you there are lots of vegans out there that are vegan, and the world doesn't necessarily know it. Why? So that brings us to the second fun fact. Until recently, a lot of people assumed that coming out as vegan would be a non-starter in politics. You may have heard this about this study, which was a pretty amazing one. Vox was one of the publications that actually talked about this topic, and then it was picked up in a couple other articles. It was a study that actually showed that people in general view vegans so negatively that only drug addicts were worse. But people actually hated vegans more than all of these other groups. Now, I don't know if this study, would prove itself to be true nowadays, but it was definitely something that I think gave vegans some food for thought and explained why, advocating for veganism runs into so many obstacles. So when it comes to politics, this is, of course, even tougher because you are pretty much running on your identity. That's your whole job. That's why people are going to vote for you, because of the image that people form of you. So, this is probably why we haven't seen more vegans in politics, and the people who are vegan or plant-based in their personal life haven't been advertising it too much. So with that, now let's turn things over to our panelists to elaborate on this topic. So we're going to ask you guys these 2 questions to please sort of answer together. Tell us about your own political activism and maybe try to emphasize any kind of lessons you have learned. And as part of that question, if you don't mind, please touch on the question as to whether you are more in favor of the slow and incremental approach or the direct vegan approach. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and put the spotlight on our panelists. So let's start with Sadie.
Yeah, sure. So for me, the questions have gone off my screen. So if I don't answer all 3, then please do prompt me. So the stuff that we've done here at Suffolk County Council in Suffolk, I would say is it's a bit different really, because although Suffolk County Council is a political organisation, the work of the Vegan Staff Network has been really not political in its approach. So as a staff network, we have to remain completely neutral. As officers of a political organisation, we can't be seen to engage or try and push the agenda of any one political party. We're currently Tory government, so we can't be seen to, most people would think automatically a vegan network would be aligned to the Green Party, or it's basically been about making sure that we're about the staff and about the members rather than about a political agenda. But having said that, there are quite a lot of things that the vegan network has had an impact on within a political organisation. So to give you a bit of an example, myself and my co-chairs, each of us has on a rota basis will attend the Strategic Inclusion and Equalities Board, and on that is members of all of the staff networks, so representatives from the Women's Network, Disability Network. And what happens there is we talk about things that impact staff and impact things within our organisation. So for a really good example would be, recently we've started a healthy conversations portal for all of our managers, and all of the staff networks were consulted on that and had an opportunity to input to it. So things like how vegans like to be included in team preparation, things that are effective, things that are inclusive, all of that kind of stuff that would ordinarily not be considered or thought about is now all being included in those corporate policies and plans and resources for managers. So although it's not a direct political impact in terms of lobbying our cabinet members for any specific reason, it is changing a political organisation from the inside out and sort of having a good impact for vegan staff, really. So yeah, that's probably the Vegan Network. For anybody who doesn't know, it's a network for staff within Suffolk County Council and for any of our partner organisations, so local district and borough councils in the Suffolk area, any of our other affiliated partners. So and our terms of reference, we've got a website, so if you Google Suffolk County Council Vegan Staff Network, you'll be able to see all of our work and our terms of reference. And so just as I've said Google, my phone's now trying to Google it for me because it's activated. Sorry, she's stopped talking to me now. Yeah, so lots of work went into, initially we used the playbook, and that helped get us started. This is about January last year, and we started up the Vegan Staff Network. It was before Geordie's case had been signed off, so this was before veganism was a protected characteristic under the Equalities Act. So it took a little bit of backwards and forwards, but we're really fortunate. We work in quite a supportive organisation, and they agreed and recognised it as a characteristic. So that was fantastic, and we're now at about 160 members internally, and so we're super pleased with that. When you start these things, you're never quite sure how many you'll find within your organisation, and one of the really nice things has been that a lot of our members are, although some of them are vegan, we've got a huge portion who don't identify as vegan, but we've gone at it from an angle of, these are the ethical vegan beliefs and values, and people have found that they align themselves with that and then get involved with vegan network activities. So things like the beach clean, for example. We've got some really passionate members who are really keen on preserving the environment and stopping climate breakdown. And actually, in being a very open network, we've been able to have conversations and learn from each other. And people who might not have ordinarily considered a plant-based diet might be considering it now. So yeah, that's kind of a bit about the Vegan Staff Network. What were the other questions, Darina?
Sure. The part of the question was whether you learned any lessons you'd like to share, and whether you believe more in the slow and steady incrementalist approach or just hitting things hard with a direct vegan message.
Yeah, sure. Lessons learned has probably been to make sure that you talk to the right people right from the outset. So if you're trying to start up a vegan initiative in a political organisation, I would say map out who the people are that you think will care about this, who you think the people will be that will be your opposition to anything happening, and pick up the phone and go and talk to them. That's the big lesson for me. When I started having face-to-face conversations with my colleagues and explaining to them about what it is that I was trying to achieve, that broke down so many barriers straight away. I think you summed it up really well right at the beginning, Darren, about how veganism is sometimes not very welcomed. And I think there's a real fear in organisations, especially political ones, around the word activist. And it comes with a bit of a stigma to it. And, you know, I was told right at the very beginning of this by a colleague, don't let this be your activism. But for me, it is a form of activism. You know, I'm a vegan, I'm a passionate vegan, and I want to influence everything and every element of my life around plant-based and kindness to animals. I don't see activism as a bad word, but it definitely does carry a stigma. So that would be my big lesson learned, is talk to people, pick up the phone, go see them. And as for approach, I don't know where everybody works, but local government, nothing happens directly, quickly, or overnight. So I think for me, it would be never lose sight of what you're trying to achieve, but you unfortunately do have to take the incrementalist approach when you're in local government, just purely because it's, you know, lots of people have to have a say on things. It has to go through certain boards or panels or sign-off levels. So at my heart, I'd love to be direct. I think getting something done, you know, not mulling over it for too long is perfect. But yeah, in my job and in my work life, it has to be incrementalist. So yeah.
Amazing. This was such great stuff. I'm so glad we recorded this. So now let's put Clifton in the spotlight. So Clifton, the questions were, please tell us about your political activism. Please share any lessons you learned, and discuss whether you are more of a incrementalist or a direct approach person.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. 2014, I was very frustrated with the state of US politics, and I did a Google search for political parties that sought to protect both human beings and non-human animals. And of course, I thought that type of search would come up pretty empty. And lo and behold, I came across a party called the Humane Party. At that time, it had been established for about 7 years. I think the conveners of the party got together in 2008 and formally launched the party in 2009. So my first engagement and participation with the Humane Party was actually as its CEO in 2014. And some of the things that I did was kind of establish a national infrastructure so that we can reach pockets of the United States and assign coordination of activities within those pockets. And specifically, it was like state developers and regional developers. And so I started reaching out to animal rights activists and environmentalists. And what I loved about the Humane Party was the officers or candidates that came aboard had to voluntarily sign what was called the Humane Party Oath. And it was kind of fashioned after the Hippocratic Oath that doctors make. And the oath asked the candidate or the officer that was participating in the political party to promise to live their life according to humane values, and whether it's clothes and entertainment and all of that. So that was easy for me, because at that time I think I was an 18-year vegan. It'll be 23 years this year in September. So I participated in multiple ways. Again, developing that infrastructure, seeking candidates, having conversations, reaching out to the volunteers, and we had a volunteer database. and asking people to run for office. That was my biggest thing, is, oh, please run for office. I mean, there was a radio checkbox that said, you know, how do you want to volunteer? And there were a few people that actually said they wanted to run for office. So I immediately reached out to them. And I remember the first person that I helped, Miranda, gosh, what was her last name? Her name is Miranda. She lived in New Jersey, and she wanted to run for city council. And so I ended up, you know, my volunteer in terms of my activity in terms of dollars were to hire a bunch of college students to go out and canvass with her. And so it was her and maybe 5 or 6 college students going out and canvassing for signatures. And that was just an incredible experience. You know, she didn't win, but it provided me a lot of motivation, because one, we found a candidate. That was the very first candidate that I worked with that agreed to run under the Humane Party ticket. And then probably about 4 months later, the board of directors for the Humane Party actually approached me and said, hey, we've been having these discussions, and we thought that it would be fantastic if you would represent the Humane Party as its very first presidential candidate. And I agreed, and in 2016, I actually ran for the office of the President of the United States. I asked Dr. Amy Breeze Harper, who is very well known for her intersectional approach to veganism. And she's also a staunch diversity and inclusion advocate. And she agreed to run as my vice presidential running mate. So ever since then, I've been involved with the Humane Party. And I think lessons learned from me was that whether it was serving as its CEO or serving as a political candidate, I thought that it would be very easy for me to, there's a train coming, guys, for me to be able to convince other vegans, hey, I'm a vegan candidate, or I am leading a vegan political organization, come on aboard. Let's go replace all of those 563 people in Congress, and let's replace them with us. And I found that the biggest lesson I learned is that, you know, Darina, you showed those concentric circles at the beginning of this live cast. And I look at it in concentric circles in that all of us as vegans, we stand within a circle of unity when it comes to animal rights, for the most part. When it comes to the effect that consuming animals has on human health, we all stand within a concentric circle. We all stand within one circle of unity. And in other things, when it comes to the destruction of our air, land, and water resources, we all know what the science says, and we stand within that circle of unity. But then when it comes to politics, if you picture all of us as dots, you know, 1 million dots within a circle, that's when those dots just disperse. And I think there's a history of tradition and comfort that has been this country's biggest obstacles when it comes to vegan candidates. And because that circle of unity is just broken apart. And not only that, it's often hostile. I've been accused of trying to ruin elections. I've been accused of electing Donald Trump just because of my own natural born right to participate in the political process here in the US and meet the qualifications according to the Constitution to be able to run for the office of US President. And so, you know, that circle of unity is disbanded, and people feel this fear to have to vote for the parties that are more recognized. And so that's been my biggest lesson. And I think it's something that, you know, I have to think about, and folks that are running for office have to think about as well. And by the way, there was another gentleman named Robert Mason that actually ran for the House of Representatives in Texas. in 2018. And as you can imagine, that was pretty challenging in Texas to run on a compassionate platform. So with that said, the Humane Party itself is very in your face, you know, straight to the point. The platform says we want to end the inhumane, economically unsound exploitation or disturbance of other human species by humans. And it includes legislation to do that, including what's called the Abolition Amendment. So I love that because, of course, over the years, we as vegans, we speak to people's hearts and their sense of empathy, and we speak to their logic, and none of that has worked because of culture, habit, tradition, and selfishness. And so while I do love the direct in-your-face approach, and it's something that I completely support, you know, I think that adjusting and customizing a political campaign to actually get into office, as Miranda did, where she focused on animal rights, but at that time, maybe animal rights for your dogs or your farm animals. She focused on balancing the budget, you know, things like that. So there's things within the platform. And by the way, the Humane Party platform is very broad. I mean, it covers human rights, it covers environmental protection and animal rights, and it covers healthcare, and I mean, just a very complete platform. So it's a mixture of both. I mean, the platform itself is very direct and in your face, but I think as a candidate, choosing your battles wisely and figuring out the best way to get your foot in the door is an optimal approach. So I hope that encompassed all three of your questions, Darina.
It absolutely did. Wonderful. And that is a great segue to our fun fact number 3, which is, if you go to Wikipedia and search for animal rights political parties or vegan political parties, you will actually find a pretty good list. So this first page is Europe. There was actually a pretty huge story a couple years ago where the first officially vegan party was established in Germany in 2016. And the point was, this is the first time where German citizens will be able to actually vote for a vegan party. And the leader of the party kind of said, yes, we have the Green Party, but kind of as I think, Clifton, you mentioned, that party is not really doing enough. That party is kind of missing the opportunity. So we want to be sort of the new, more ambitious party. So this V Party 3 was a pretty big story. But as you can see, in many countries, there are parties that very explicitly are for veganism or for the animals. And if we look at the other parts of the world, I didn't even highlight this. This actually came highlighted for me on Wikipedia when I took the screenshot. So here is the Humane Party that, as Clifton mentioned, was established in 2009. There was apparently a new party established in 2011, Animal Rights Party US. Canada has one. And there are even some in these other parts of the world, which is quite surprising and quite impressive. So, you know, this was just kind of to share with you as some extra information. If any of you are interested to look into it, it's just all available on Wikipedia. So this is sort of the part of the equation that is all about pushing this message directly. And that brings us to our final fun fact. And that is, usually the governments are not gonna go for a vegan initiative directly, but they have been occasionally known to push for something that is at least in line with those vegan values, or at least goes in the right direction. So for example, this is back from 2016. This is way before the big year of the vegan, where China, of all places, announced a plan to cut its overall meat consumption by 50%. And they actually worked with some of the pretty liberal activists and filmmakers in the US. So this is just kind of one example. More recently, and this goes back to, I think, Sadie's world, PETA had an article on vegan councils around the world. And there was this really cool story from 2020 where there were 3 councils in the UK that simultaneously adopted kind of a vegan agenda. Amsterdam City Council joined them as well. And this third one, this is slightly different, but you know, New York City has a pretty powerful momentum when it comes to vegan initiatives nowadays. And for example, there were a lot of many initiatives that involved thousands of schools, hospitals, undertake various plant-based challenges under the umbrella of this One New York City 2015 Green New Deal. So this second is kind of an example of how local governments that have little more flexibility and a little more autonomy to just adopt a resolution can actually be on a front line and push for these initiatives. This is actually really powerful because it makes a splash and it influences the community directly. So this article I picked up actually from PETA.org. So now I think this is time for all of us to be part of a brainstorming exercise. So here's what I would like to do. I think let's all put our heads together for 5 or so minutes and let's all compile. Do we know of any other vegan political successes? They can be small, they can be little tidbits, or they can be big ones that just haven't made the news. And a second part of that question, part of the same exercise, is when it comes to the political arena, what other successes could vegans achieve today? So these are the 2 questions. And we actually use our same tool, but we are going to do kind of a free form brainstorming here. So basically, if you guys go or stay on this website, you should be able to type in a little phrase or a sentence. And if you like, you can label it with A, if you are specifically sharing any kind of vegan political success, or you can label it with B, if you want to more talk about something that could be started and undertaken today. So let's all do this. Let's just take a little bit of time. And our panelists, I imagine you have many ideas, so please contribute as well.
Yeah, sure. In there's lots of UK councils that are starting to implement climate breakdown plans at the moment. I know we've declared a climate emergency here in Suffolk, and our full cabinet, I think, discussed the climate. There was a policy and development panel which came up with how we were going to respond to the climate emergency, and I know lots of other county councils and district and borough councils are starting to do similar things in the UK specifically. And one of the other things, so I think there's one council that myself and another co-chair, we're coaching another council to have a vegan staff network. And in Nottingham City Council, they've got quite an impressive climate emergency plan. So if you're looking for any inspiration, anybody on here on climate emergency, they've got quite a strong one. And also something else from Suffolk perspective. So it's really interesting because Clifton and I come from very different, I work in a political organisation and Clifton is very much influencing politics directly. But within Suffolk, one thing that we're working on at the moment is with Four Paws. They're quite a large organisation and they have impact all over the world. And they've got a campaign at the moment called Make Food Kinder. And I've linked up with Four Paws and with one of our large food providers for schools in Suffolk. And we're now helping and working with them to come up with a really good plant-based menu. And that will have impact over just over 200 schools that are served food. So we're looking to get a vegan option as standard on every single school menu. We're looking to reduce their carbon footprint. And we've been really fortunate because the organisation that we're working with has already taken steps in that direction. And they've been really keen. And some of the other things around the Make Food Kinder campaign is about you know, looking at the welfare of the meat that they are purchasing, and making a commitment around, you know, not buying from certain suppliers, as well as reducing it. So it's that incremental approach again. I mean, if you asked me what I wanted overnight, it would be that all school catering would be vegan, but that's something that's got to happen over time. But that's just an example of how, although I don't have a direct political influence, it's something that comes out of Suffolk County Council contracting. So, you know, being in a local council, we have quite a big impact.
Darina, I had a chance to meet Marianne and Esther as well. Esther actually came and spoke at one of our Humane Party events, and they're from the Netherlands. And for me, it's those two, especially Marianne. She was the trailblazer for the Party of Animals in the Netherlands, and actually held seats in the House of Representatives for many, 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 many years. And it wasn't incrementalist for them. They were just, hey, animals have the same rights. Non-human animals have the same rights as human beings. And by far, we are not the center of this planet of ours. And Esther also won a seat on the House of Representatives. And it's, for us, it's, you know, we consider them our sister party, and vice versa. And they are our biggest example of when vegans get together and that the candidates represent the constituency of vegans, that they can move mountains and win. Now, granted, you know, the culture in Netherlands is a bit different than the culture in the United States. You know, we have for many, 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 many years consumed meat. And I'd like to remind this audience, my acronym, Darina, I think I've shared this with you before. My acronym I came up with many, many years ago for meat is muscle and epinephrine of animal tissue. You know, it's because, you know, when animals are killed, their hormones go wild and they're injected with this adrenaline, which is epinephrine. And it's something that the U.S. population has gotten addicted to. And I think the culture in Netherlands, it's a bit different. But by far, that is such a powerful story of vegans in politics that we continue to try to emulate.
Absolutely. Great. Well, looks like we compiled some great ideas here. So as usual, we will extract them from here and find a way to turn them into some actionable ideas and share them with the group. So now let's switch back to our panelists. And maybe let's ask this one question. Our audience that is made of more influential vegans who have important positions in the corporate world. So for this particular audience, what is the most important thing we should be doing to advance this movement? So maybe let's start with Sadie.
Yeah, sure. That's a really big question. I would probably say just start. That's kind of, Jack and I, when we started the network, we thought about it for a while, and my top ask is just never think that you are not going to be able to do something. I think it's really important that people in all different kinds of roles and all different organisations can realise that they can have such a huge impact. You know, even if it's just down to finance, for example, you know, you can build stuff into the procurement process. You know, you can have a real impact on what your organisation spends their money on and how they spend it and what organisations that you'll contract with. So that would probably be my top ask, is to just get started and realise that you can make a difference. Every conversation is activism, and every conversation will have an impact. And once you start that ball rolling, and once you start networking and talking to people, things just happen, and it's like the universe just goes, oh, okay, they're trying to achieve something here. And you know, if you come at it with the right attitude and just start having those conversations, you can really make a difference. That would be my top ask.
How do you think, to follow up on that a little bit, how do you think each person should choose what it is that they should do specifically? Because I think that sometimes the dilemma of people is that, yeah, I could be having a lot of conversations, I could be volunteering, I could start initiative. What advice would you give to people there?
That's a really good question. I don't know how everyone else feels here, but being an activist myself, when I first started, I tried everything. You know, I tried street demos, I've tried speaking in schools, I've tried writing articles. You just sort of have a go at everything and see what you're good at. But that would be the place to start, is think about your passion and where your skill sets lie. So, you know, do you know a lot about the planet and climate change, or do you know a lot about animal welfare? And then think about your professional skill sets. You know, are you really good at writing? Are you good at engaging a large audience? Are you a leader? You know, do you have the ears of a lot of important people? Think about your skill sets would be the best place to start, because, you know, one of the things when I first went vegan is I thought, you know, street activism, I really wanted to do it. You know, you see all these guys on Instagram and on YouTube, and they do an amazing job talking to people, but it wasn't my strongest skill set. You know, and I've since found that I love going into schools and talking to teenagers and engaging with them about veganism and animal rights. And, you know, but if you ask me about climate breakdown, I can have a good conversation with you, but it's not my strongest point. So that would be where I'd start, is think about your passion and think about your skills.
Wow. How about you, Clifton? What is your top ask for the audience? Run for the office?
No, I think it would be twofold. Yeah, the second one is run for office. Absolutely. And not necessarily the US president. Like, I've ran for Senate. I'm going to continue to run. Like, I'll find a place to run for mayor. And, you know, people have asked me, I remember running for office the first time, and they said, well, why are you running for president? You know, you have no chance and you should run for this. And I'm like, well, why do you make assumptions of what I'm going to do? You know, I absolutely am going to try these other things, right? So yeah, that is the second part. But the first part is, I love this organization that you lead, Darina, because we as professionals in corporations and multinationals, we have this natural ability through the experience that we've harvested over the years to work with other people's organizational development, recognizing other people's skills and things like that. So definitely our involvement from a corporate perspective needs to continue, and we need to continue to network like this. Me specifically, the example I would give you is customize your career track within your own corporation to get closer to the political activities that could effectuate change. And the specific example that I can give you is where I used to work in the sales and marketing group, leading a team of instructional designers, and then morphing over to the law and policy group. Every time that I sought another position, it was to get closer to the way that Intel could lobby or interact with government. And ultimately I did it. It took me 10 years, but I went from working first in IT, then over to the sales and marketing group, then to the law and policy group, and now I work in governments, markets, and trade. And my most proud moment was being able to speak in front of the White House Office of Management and Budget. And there's an article out there, if you Google it, it says, White House hears from Intel about its federal data strategy, right? And it's me, you know, with this American flag behind me, and they don't know that I'm just like this, you know, double agent spy that has infiltrated the organization now. And I'm telling them, look, you need to have all of your government agencies release all of its data, healthcare data, environmental data, and then they actually passed a law. So that would be my first one is, as you really think about your own career track, customize it in a way that you can get closer and closer to federal, state, and local decision makers would be my ask.
Wow. So let's open it up to everybody else. I would like to just ask everybody on the call here, was there any particular point or takeaway that really stuck with you today, that inspired you? Anastasia is smiling. I think she is eager to share something with us.
Well, the thing that I like what Clifton was saying is the trajectory of your career. That is so smart. Like, I can't believe you started in IT, and I am in IT now, and then you literally left IT, which to me is almost scary. It's like you're crossing to the dark side, leaving IT, going to the business, sales and marketing, and now you're actually in a government,
Yes.
government affairs, so to speak, and that is amazing. That's such a bold move. Really appreciate that you sharing this. Actually,
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yes, I am a person. I work for the largest corporation in the world. I work for Walmart, and we do have a very small veg foodies group that I try. It's like a Slack channel that I try to be active in there. But I just sit there and I keep itching and thinking, why can't it become an associate resource group? We have a women's resource group. We have African American resource group. We have Hispanic resource group. We have even tribal voices, Native American resource group, but there's nothing about greener choices. I don't know. I don't know how to package it yet, but every time I listen to this live cast, like I get this bug in my ear and in my brain as to what can I do to leverage my situation.
Oh. Great. Let's hear from Michael Coleman.
All right. Hi there. So part of my activism is being vegan and being an example. I love working with little kids, and I don't tell them day after day, I'm vegan and be like me, but it comes out. It's revealed, and I've inspired some kids. I've inspired some parents, and it's being a positive example. I think is one approach to is my approach to activism, along with some other things, working with vegan leaders, which I completely agree with Clifton. You're absolutely right. Our group this organization is making some strides, and the leadership of Darina is really helping with that.
Absolutely.
So thank you for recognizing that, Clifton.
Yeah, it's great to meet another fellow martial artist. I studied martial arts my whole life in Okinawa, Japan. And what a platform you have to be able to interject the vegan message with martial arts, because martial arts is all about respect and honor and, being one with nature, and in some cases emulating nature and emulating animals, right? So it's great to meet you, Michael.
Likewise, thank you.
Let me share one more thing. As I was doing a little research for this live cast, I was just looking at various articles and various resources on this topic. There was a really interesting article out there about the vegan voting bloc. And the whole question of the article was, right now, vegans are not really recognized as powerful constituency, as the same way as Native Americans are, or Blacks, women, younger people, millennials. And is that going to change? Because imagine a future where the vegans out there are seen so seriously by the politicians that they bend over backwards to pass legislation and talk about veganism in a way that appeals to this vegan voters. And it doesn't even have to be, to me, like the vegan voters. It can be voters that are interested in some of the values and some of the beliefs of the vegan movement. I think, Sadie, you used this sentence earlier, which really resonated with me, which was kind of like, if you ask people to join a vegan group, you are going to get only a couple people who really identify as vegan. But if you position it as people out there who are aligned with beliefs and values that are behind it, then all of a sudden the coalition can really expand. So, this was just something that I just thought was interesting. I wasn't quite sure what to do with that information or what to do with that idea, but it just kind of really got me thinking, can we get to the point where the politicians and governments really see the pro-plant-based people as a constituency to really cater to?
Good point.
Okay, so what else? What else? Gail, anything that stuck with you from today?
Yeah, just like Anastasia, it was really Clifton's strategy for thinking years ahead and where do you want to be, where do you want to have influence. I really appreciated that. I think that's a smart way to look at one's career and how you can affect change over the course of your career at every stage of the way. So I really appreciated that. That made a big impact.
Appreciate it.
And then Sadie was saying that you have to talk to the right people, and that's that also stuck with me. So my guess is, Sadie, you said, like, I was thinking about doing this, but my guess is you took a bit of time to really strategize to make sure this idea doesn't die on the vine, you know, as you really start pursuing it.
Absolutely, yeah. Like when we first started the Vegan Network, we used the playbook and helped map out everything that we wanted to do, what we wanted it to achieve. So that came in really handy. And then I think we were about 6 or 7 months into the Vegan Network being live, and then we were really fortunate to have a coach from VLCM, Emma, and she really helped us, you know, to think about the next level and where we wanted it to go, and how we sort of branched out really. So that was amazing. So if anybody hasn't used, little plug here for VLCM, but if anybody hasn't used the coaching side of things or the playbook, it's amazing. But yeah, definitely. One of the other things that I just wanted to say while I'm on here is that in the UK we have a parliamentary working group around veganism and vegetarianism. So that's worth a little Google, and myself and one of my co-chairs have been invited to go and talk about veganism in professionalism and about the Vegan Staff Network. So that's something that I hadn't, you know, I work in local government and I hadn't even heard of this cross-parliamentary group until recently. So yeah, for any UK-based people, that's well worth a look. But Clifton, what you said about the longer term, thinking about your career, that really stuck with me as well. It's something that, you know, I think everybody who works in any organisation, if you're not, you know, we're all passionate about animal rights and about veganism, and it's really hard sometimes when you're doing a day job that isn't that, because it's such an important agenda and something that you really want to have an impact on. And, you know, I work in adult safeguarding, which, you know, I love it. It feels like I'm doing a good thing in my job, but it's not my, you know, it's not that thing that sits right at the core of me, not right at the heart of me. So I'm forever battling with this whole, I want to go and work in an animal rights organisation, you know, I want to go and be doing something directly for animals. And then I'm in this ongoing battle with myself about, okay, I think, Darren, we had a conversation about this a while ago, didn't we, about, I came to a bit of a crossroads in my career of, you know, do I look outside of the council or do I stay in it and use my influence within it to achieve things like the food in schools, or, you know, helping and submitting stuff to our climate emergency. And I made the decision to stay, but it is so important to think about your longer term plan. So that's sort of, that bit that you said did really stick with me.
That's good, yeah.
So you are in luck, because we will actually be tackling that very topic on one of our upcoming live casts. That's a topic that bothers a lot of vegans who feel like they would want to do vegan work full time. So here's the schedule of our upcoming live casts. We always have them on the last Saturday of each month. And in October, we are actually going to invite Emma, the same person that coached you during your vegan initiative, to talk about the strategies to actually get a full-time vegan job.
Fascinating.
But otherwise, you know, some of the topics that we have lined up, for those of you who are more passionate about staying in the multinational corporation and put together a powerful vegan employee network, that's a topic we are going to be covering next time. And towards the end of the year, we're going to talk about some really interesting strategic topics that are all about, you know, connecting, mobilizing the vegan community, particularly in the world we live in today. So we'll be talking about kind of technologies that could bring this network of 5,000 plus vegans together. And then we're going to kind of finish the year with sort of what's next.
Mm.
What is the next 10 years going to look like? You can see this information on our website, veganleaders.com, under events and under livecast. And each of these is a link through which you can register for that particular topic. So with that, we are, I think, perfectly on time. It is now 1 minute before our scheduled end time. I want to thank very deeply to our panelists, Sadie and Clifton. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you guys very much, all of you, for joining and contributing to the brainstorming activities. Thank you to my co-hosts, Anastasia and Gail, and hope you guys will visit with us next time.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Nice working with you, Sadie.
You too. Take care.
too.
Bye.
Bye.